If you have been in the game dev community, then you should be familiar with Ludum Dare, but for those who don't know what it is, it's a famous game competition that runs once every 4 months or so, where you must make a game based on a theme in 48 or 72 hours. This is called a game jam. After partaking in the Global Game Jam Next Bucharest, me and my friend Andu were pretty excited to participate at our very first Ludum Dare edition. But some stuff happened and our schedules got a little messed up and we ended up not being able to participate. Luckily, there was another online game jam 1 week later organized by the Extra Credits channel, so we thought we'd give it a go. This is how AntiBuddy was born. I invited Andu over to my place because I thought brainstorming would be more fun and efficient if we were to collaborate in person. By the time we started, the theme had already been announced, so we hopped onto the website to see what it was. Awesome per second. Wow. We looked at each other and immediately agreed on something. It was really vague. We then sat down and started brainstorming ideas. We started by looking up the exact definition of awesome and then made a list of things we thought were awesome, but none of them sparked a consistent idea. After about 40 minutes or so, Andu mentioned the game he knew where you had to press specific keyboard keys in order to kill enemies, and somehow that lit a light bulb in both of our heads. Shortly after, each of us had sketched his idea. My idea was of a ninja that needs to destroy flying robots by dashing through them in a specific direction, marked by an arrow drawn on each of them. Andu's idea was of a game where enemies try to charge at you from 4 directions, each of them having an arrow on them, and in order to kill them, you would have to first pick the direction you were aiming at with WASD, and then press the corresponding arrow key. I honestly thought his idea was way cooler than mine, but I didn't really see it fit as well in the theme of awesome. To make a compromise, we decided to both try to prototype our idea a little in Unity, and then decide which one to focus on. So, we sat down and started working. I hadn't programmed in Unity in months, so I had to watch a few tutorials in order to set up a good 2D movement system. After that, I started working on the dash mechanic. Blackthorn Prod has a really good tutorial on how to create a dash in Unity, so I took a look at his code and tinkered a little around it to better fit my needs. Fast forward an hour and I had something that was kinda working. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, shortage of equipment and Visual Studio deciding not to recognize Unity scripts, Andu had trouble putting his idea into practice. Before we knew it though, it was noon, so time for a lunch break. After a well-deserved pizza, we decided to refresh our minds with some recreational activities. Well then, back to work. We realized something though. With Andu not really being able to work on prototyping his idea quickly enough, it would have been a big waste of time to work on 2 separate projects like we did so far. So we had to pick one. Because I maxed out speech and intelligence in my skill tree, I managed to talk him into doing my idea. He sat down and started playtesting what I'd managed to create so far, and he told me that the movement felt really bad and hard to control. I completely agreed. We started tweaking the gravity multiplier, but no matter how much we decreased it, it still didn't feel quite right. As a result, I suggested we remove it completely. Everything felt so much better. But now, the idea of a jumping ninja wasn't an option anymore, unless we made the game top-down, and I had no idea how to draw, let alone animate top-down sprites. We put aside the story side of the game for a while in order to focus on the programming. We added more types of enemies, made them move, placed spawn points, and, after a few hours with a break between them, we managed to finish the core game mechanics. It looked something like this. We were both exhausted, so Andu decided to leave and continue work the following day. I closed the computer and rode my bike to the nearest park to clear my head. A couple of hours later, I booted up Unity again and implemented the health system, just because I was stressed that we wouldn't have time to finish everything tomorrow. Quick side note, don't do stuff like that, overworking yourself will probably end up doing more harm than good. After I was happy with it, I went to bed. I woke up and felt like doing everything but work on the game. That's usually how I feel about most things when I'm sleepy. I grabbed breakfast, wasted time on social media, and then booted up the computer. That day, me and Andu would work over Discord. After I got into a call with him, I found out he too overworked a little the night before in order to get used to the program he would use to make the music. Bosca... something. The next thing on my to-do list was the art, because so far we'd only used placeholder assets. An idea for the game I had the other day was about an antibody trying to kill bacteria so it doesn't reach the immune system. Even though Andu was really starting to dig the whole ninja thing, he understood that I couldn't make decent sprites in time for that idea. So we stuck with my plan. I had a rough idea of how I want the different bacteria to look, but no clue on how to draw an antibody as a game character. I did a quick research on Google to see what an actual antibody looks like, and it looks like this. Yeah, not helpful. Andu then remembered me about an old cartoon about the human body where they represented all the body cells and functions as cute characters. What I found was not really what I was aiming for, but it helped me think of some ideas. I started making the base shape, followed by the details and color, and it ended up something like this. Andu liked it, so I started working on the bacteria. After making the first one, I copied a lot of the features and simply changed their position and color for the others to make the process more efficient. I chose to make each of them have individual color palettes for better differentiation between the enemies during the fast-paced game. After the characters were done, I started working on the background. I took an image looking all microscopic, sciencey-like, and edited a bit so it looks more faded and cartoonish to fit better with my style. It was noon when I finished all of the art. Even though the 48 hours would be up the day after at 10:30 AM, we didn't want to stay overnight or wake up early, so we decided to finish it that very day. Even though the game looked nicer, it barely had any UI and no menus, sound, animations or effects, so there were still plenty to do. While I was busy with the art, Andu took care of two big bugs the game had. One where you would take damage from touching the bacteria, and another one where you were able to exploit the hitbox and kill the enemy without dashing properly. Not only did he improve the hitboxes, he also made a really good design choice, one which I was very skeptical about. He removed collision damage completely, so the only way you would lose health is by letting the bacteria get away. This ended up making the game so much better. I went on to make some animations for the dash by using the classic squash and stretch technique. Next, I designed a simple main menu and tutorial screen. Andu then had the brilliant idea to allow the player to test out the movement in the tutorial, so I made it possible to practice moving around, dashing and even killing a few enemies. In the meantime, he added a particle system to the dash so it feels more magical and interesting. Afterwards, while he started working on the soundtrack, I recorded myself making some whoosh noises for a dash sound effect. Then I made a small game over panel to show up when the game ends. When Andu finished making the music, it was pretty late in the evening and we were both tired and low on patience. It was time to add the finishing touches. A particle system, some malfunctioning buttons later, and the game was finished. Hooray!
Or is it?
We then realized something. We had no name for the game. Suddenly, a name just popped up in my head and boy was I excited about it. The game would be called AntiBuddy. I then quickly took some screenshots of the game, made a banner, an icon, filled out the build settings in Unity, and before you know it, the game was ready to be launched. Well, almost. We still had to go back a few times and fix a few things we'd forgotten, but at around 12 midnight the game was submitted on the website. We congratulated each other, talked about the experience and then went to sleep. We were exhausted. And that was it, our first ever online game jam experience. It was crazy working for almost 2 days straight under pressure, but we learned so much from this adventure. If you have some kind of skill related to game development, I highly recommend you participate in jams, even small ones, because the experience is priceless. I hope you enjoyed this post-mortem kind of video. Maybe we'll do more in the future. Yes, I'm looking at you, Ludumdar43. Anyways, have a nice one.